Hey everybody, Dave here. Where are my Blue Prism developers out there? You just got the best update in a long time that is just for you. No, it's not dark mode. I know, we all want it. I'm sure that Blue Prism is going to give that to us. Just give them time. Also, anchor features in Application Modeler for active accessibility and UIA. Sorry, I had to slip that in there. We are getting a huge quality of life improvement in Application Modeler with the enhanced Application Modeler. I'm using Blue Prism 7.3.1. You can even see this in 7.3. Oh man, it's good. So in this video, I'm going to show you what it used to look like in Application Modeler and then the same features in the enhanced Application Modeler. You'll see that the actual functionality is not changed. We can still do all the same things we could do before, but now you can do them faster and easier. It's just a better quality of life for developers. It's wonderful. So let's take a look at it. Now, the way I'm going to handle this is we've got two instances of Blue Prism open right now. I don't know that that's 100% necessary, but I'm just doing it just in case. On the left, we have Dave logged in, and on the right, we have Dave2 logged in, two separate users, and that will be important later on. It's using the same Blue Prism environment, and so I have two separate objects, one called Original Application Modeler and one called Enhanced Application Modeler. And then I also have Centrix Data Solutions open. This is a test application that you can download from the training materials in the foundation training in the Blue Prism University if you wanted to follow along or try this out. And then if you wanted to log in and try it out, you type in BP into staff number and the word password, lowercase, into the password field, and you can log in and try it out. What I plan to do throughout the video here is I'm going to show you how the original application modeler works and the enhanced application modeler works. The reason I'm calling it Original Application Modeler is that wording is technically in the Blue Prism documentation. It's only there in one place. I couldn't figure out what to call the old one, but I didn't want to call it the old one. So I found it's called Original Application Modeler in there. So that's what we're going to refer to it as. Let me show you initially just the experience of creating a new application model. Both of these objects don't have an application model yet. So I'm going to click this button here to open up the application modeler. You'll see that this brings up the screen we would normally expect. And on the right, I'm going to click the same button over here. I just wanted to show you that by default, it's going to open up the application modeler wizard like the original one. The only way that you use the enhanced experience is you click this little drop down and you've got Enhanced Application Modeler Beta. In case you're concerned about it, I have thoroughly tested this and I can't find any reason to worry about it. You can switch between these as much as you like, and there shouldn't be any negative impact. I'm going to click on Enhanced Application Modeler, and it brings up this screen. And then I'm going to click Close, and I wanted to show you that it's going to remember what I last clicked on. So I'm going to hit the button right here, Application Modeler, and it brings up the Enhanced Application Modeler instead of the old one. Whereas before when I clicked on it, it brought up I called it the old one, the Original Application Modeler. So now I've got both versions open at the same time here. And we're just going to click through this. So if I were doing the original application modeler experience, then I would probably change the application name manually here to Centrix Data Solutions. And notice that has spaces in it. That'll be important here in a minute. So I'm going to click Next. And there's local application that I'm going to choose for the type of application. That's Next. And then I'm going to choose Windows application and click Next. Here, I don't think it's supposed to say what type of application are you using. I think it's supposed to say, how do you want to attach? But I'm going to click on my application will already be running. I want to attach to an existing instance and then click Next. Here, I need to type in the window title, so I need to go figure that out. And this is not that bad. It says Centrix Data Solutions, space. Please log in. So I could type the entire thing, but I'm going to go with Centrix Data Solutions star. If you were to log in, you'd see that the next screen doesn't say please log in, which makes sense. It says something else. And so I wanted to make sure to work on both screens just in case it's necessary. It probably wouldn't matter though. This is initially for attaching. I'm going to click Next and then enter the Windows process name of the target application. Now, there's no way for me to know this by just glancing at it. I can make an assumption, but there's no way to know for sure. So I'm going to open up Task Manager. Okay, we've got Task Manager open. And it's loading all the apps in here. Okay, so here's the one that I want. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to find. And so I'll find myself like just trying to figure out which one it is. I'll click the CPU and then I'll go over and I'll just jiggle the application around and it will cause the CPU utilization for that process to rise, bringing that process to the top. And then I know what it is. In this case, it's named exactly the same thing. So it's pretty easy. But there are times, especially with like Java applications and kind of some weird ones where it won't be named the same thing as the window title. It's just totally separate. And so you just got to figure it out. In this case, it's not hard though. Still, I had to come in here, do this, go to details, and then here is the process name, centrixdatasolutions.exe. So I'm going to close this and we'll go over and type that in, Centrix Data Solutions. Here I don't put the .exe because that's assumed. I'm going to click next. And then this asks if I want to put in the path of the application in case I want to launch it. Like in case it's not found, it'll automatically get launched. I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to click next. Here there's command line parameters that you might use sometimes, but in desktop applications, usually I don't find the need to. If it were a browser-based application, then I'd put the URL in there. And here I'll click next. I'm not going to change that. Again, application manager mode, I'm not going to change that. Next. Here, this is for Blue Prism technical support. They'll tell you what to put in here if needed. And then I'm going to click finish. So that was quite a few screens that I didn't need to do anything with. And Blue Prism recognized that. And so they've adjusted the experience. We'll have to do fewer clicks and also less typing. So I'm going to go over and we're going to do the same thing again. Define a new application model and not a shared one. I'm going to click next. How will the spy tool attach to the target application? The application will already be running. Next. And then here, I'm going to scroll down and show you that you could choose the manually configure application option, do configure application. Here's where you could put in the window title, process name, choose the application type, but I don't actually need to do that. I'm going to go back. So remember, we haven't clicked in there yet. Actually, let's go back a few screens just to not forget what all we've done. We were on the first screen here. I didn't change anything. I clicked next. On this screen, I chose the first one, and then I clicked next. And then here, I don't see the application that I want in this list. I could scroll, but I'm just going to click into the filter box and type Centrix. Here's the application. I'm going to click this and then highlight application just to make sure it's got the right one. And then I will go down and click next. And here's the application model name. You'll see that it pulled the name of the process directly in here. So I don't even have to change this, but I am going to click in here and put some spaces because I like that. Then I'll click next. And now it says my application model is empty. And so I can either review properties or identify an element. We'll go ahead and review properties. And I will scroll down to this part for the window title. I would say this isn't necessary at this point, but I just like to so I don't forget. I'm going to change this to have a star. And that's it. Now we're in the same place as we were with the traditional or the original application modeler. So it's a lot faster to set up the initial application model. I didn't have to go look in Task Manager. I didn't even need to worry about what the window title was. That you saw, of course, I changed it, but you don't have to do that initially. So let's compare the experience of adding elements in the original application modeler versus the enhanced application modeler. If I were trying to create an application model for this login screen, or let's say a set of elements for this login screen, I'm going for staff number input, the password input, and then the login button. There are various ways I might do that, but I want to show you what I'm doing logically in my brain every time I go and spy these. Identify for this first element, hold Control and left click. We are on Win32 mode right now. I'll click element, do this again and again for all of these elements. And then once I've done Win32 on all three, I might jump back now and let's try doing like UIA. I'll hit Alt and let's do UIA. I've got to do this over and over. Element, identify, Alt, hold Control, left click, element, identify, Alt, hold Control, left click, and then we'll do accessibility mode like this. Element, identify, Alt, hold Control, left click, element, identify, Alt, hold Control, left click. Okay, so we've got 9 elements now. So all 3 expected spy modes. So I'm not going to use region mode for this. That would make sense. Obviously, we're not using browser mode or Java or any of that for this application. But that's 9 elements that I can now use to compare against each other. The problem is that, well, there's a number of problems, but one of them is that I would have to go in here and edit each of these down to use the specific attributes that I think are good. And in terms of active accessibility, it can be insane because by default, there's a ton of them selected. Now, there are ways you can use copy element mask and you can paste onto another one. So I just want to point out there are ways to make this go a little bit faster, But for the most part, you still at some point, you got to come in here and deselect a bunch of things. And then you eventually, narrow it down to what you want, figure out which spy mode is best. But Blue Prism has made this significantly easier, especially when you're just trying to prove things out from the start. So in the enhanced application modeler, what you can do, let's go ahead and attach. It says my application model is empty. I'll go ahead and click this. I want to use this button up here though. Identify element. And then what you'll see is it says automatic spy mode. I'm going to hover over here. And initially I'm just going to do a single element, but I could do multiple right now. I'll hold control and left click. So what this has done is made the assumption for me that I want to probably use active accessibility in this case. I would say I probably wouldn't actually do it, but it's not bad. It's using ordinal is why I wouldn't probably use this. I'd use UIA instead once I kind of proofed it out to verify. And I'll show you over here that UIA has like a UI automation ID of text staff number. And if it didn't have this, then yeah, I might be stuck with using ordinal, right? If that's just how it is. But in this case, I'd probably go with it being slower and have this compared to being faster and using ordinal. Now that was the automatic spy mode. And let me go ahead and spy the others. Let's do identify element. I'm going to hold shift using the automatic spy mode. I'm going to click this one and click this one, holding shift and left clicking. And then I'm going to hold control and right click. That ends my spying session. So now it's added 2 more elements. And with these, it said, oh, the password input, that one's also active accessibility. Right? Probably should use that. And then for the login button, it should probably be Win32. And so it probably determined this based upon the time to identify. 15 milliseconds, 41 milliseconds, 46 milliseconds. And it's changing there because I think it's actually like looking for it again. So automatic spy mode is just right off the bat going to help us out to identify the best spy mode, select that and bring it over. And then you could always choose to override that. So let's say I want to manually go check all of the spy modes. This is how I could do it now. I'll click on identify element. Again, holding shift, I can left click, left click, left click. Now that was the automatic spy mode. I'll hit Alt to go to Win32 mode now. I'll hold shift and left click, left click, left click. Alt to go to UI automation mode. I can left click. Remember, I'm holding shift, left click, Alt to go to accessibility mode. And again, holding shift, left click, left click, left click, hold control, right click. And now it's just spat out all of those elements for me that I can use. Let me go ahead and delete the initial ones. Delete element. Let's delete that and delete that. Okay, so now we're just left with the ones that I just did from the just most recent spying session. So there should be 9 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, no, 12. Right, because I did the automatic spy mode. So there's 12 elements in here. And now I can just go through and compare them. So the automatic spy mode shows active accessibility, but let's say I'm not sure if that's the best. Well, if I had done this in the original application modeler, it would have done element 1 through element 12. That's what they've been named. And that would be a little hard to figure out where the UIA elements are. But in here, it goes ahead and names it after the spy mode and a little bit after the element type. So edit box versus button versus password. Now you'll see that like going down to active accessibility, it's not as easy to tell. It just says edit, edit, and button, but it's still possible to kind of get your bearings. So let me go down and click on the UIA for staff number. It says time to identify 820 milliseconds. That seems normal to me. UIA is just slower. It's often slower than active accessibility. It's slower than browser mode inside of a browser, slower than Win32 mode all the time. But UIA mode also gives us a benefit sometimes of having, like in this example, the UIA automation ID is text underscore staff number. And so now I have the choice. Do I want to go for the specificity of knowing exactly what the ID is and it's going to take longer? Or do I want to go with speed using active accessibility and using ordinal? So it's theoretically possible one day this could point to the wrong text field. That's just a decision you have to make. I'm kind of going into the nitty gritty of how this works, but you can completely ignore it. You can turn off a lot of these features. If I don't want to use automatic spy mode, I can go over to general properties. I can turn it off. If I don't want it to automatically narrow the attribute selection for me, I don't have to use that. Let me go over and show you what that was. Down here in the active accessibility ones, it's especially obvious. If you remember over here, active accessibility had all of these different attributes selected. But if you have this setting turned on for automatic attribute selection, then it's going to try to narrow it down to the fewest possible. So in this, let's see, let's go down to active accessibility here. We'll scroll down and you'll see if I sort on the match column, it says ordinal, type name, and role. It narrowed it down to 3 attributes. Now, do I think that's the best ones? Maybe not, but the fact is it gave me something to work with. It's much easier to start from. I don't have to go unchecking a whole bunch of things. And if I had 50 fields on a page and I wanted to actually spy all 50 fields in active accessibility, I could do that in a matter of like a minute or less. And then I wouldn't have to go deal with a whole bunch of extra attributes. There's some things that I would recommend doing differently. I think that it makes more sense to sort on the match column versus being default to be sorted on the name column. I think most Blue Prism developers are going to expect to look for these. And it can be a little bit confusing for it to look like this to start with, and then you have to click it every time. The other thing is that if I click over to general properties and I come back, then I go down and scroll down, you'll see it's not still sorted. Let me just make sure that's right. General properties, go back over here. It has the same one selected, but now the match column has been like resorted. And I don't like that. I'd like it to be more consistent. So when I click around it, it saves the state, but this is beta. Okay. It's a beta version of a feature and it works this well. I'm honestly super excited about that. I wanted to show you can turn off this enable automatic attribute selection. And let's go back over. We can spy or identify another element. Let's use active accessibility. Okay, it created this element at the bottom and sort on the match column. You'll see it works just like before, where it has just a ton of attributes selected. So if you go turn off these 2 features, then for the most part, this is going to function exactly like the original application modeler did. You still have some other minor improvements as well, but for the most part. The other feature that you can turn on is select spy modes to use custom attributes. So I'm going to go turn on active accessibility. We'll go back over to element attributes. And then let's find AA here, scroll down. Let's say that I like what they have chosen here. I don't actually prefer ordinal. So maybe let's not use active accessibility as the example. I don't know. This isn't the best one. So let's just add in something random. We're going to go to class name and add that in. In this example, there's just not a good way to uniquely identify the fields using active accessibility. And there's just nothing you can do about that. So I'm going to add in class name, click Save Custom for this button up here. And now that I have the general properties set to enabled, whenever I create a new element, it is going to use those custom attributes that I selected. So let's click Identify Elements. We need to change to active accessibility. Control, left click, and it added this element. And I'm just going to sort of the match column just in case here. Yeah, these are the 4 attributes that it used, and it included class name is what we added into it. So now anytime that I go spy something, it's going to include that class name. And this appears to be a user setting. I didn't see anything in the documentation that indicated it, but let's just go test it out. I'm going to close this. We're going to apply changes. And if I were to, with the same user, go open up like some other object. Okay, I'm going to open up application modeler in here. We're just going to attach to it really quick. Look how fast this is. This feels so good. Centrix Data Solutions. Next. And we're going to identify an element using active accessibility like this. And then I'll scroll down and you'll see it used what I saved for those custom attributes. So for my user, I get to enjoy the benefits of not having to see a ton of them here. And I can also choose to ignore the automatic attribute selection because I have this sort of override for the custom attributes turned on for active accessibility. I am logged into this side with a totally different user. So let me go over and change to Enhanced Application Modeler. And in here, I will go to General Properties and you'll see that it is not turned on for active accessibility. In fact, it has Browser and UIA because I was playing with this object earlier. It's got Browser and UIA custom attributes turned on. So if I go back over and I go Identify Element, change to Active Accessibility, hold Control and left click, I'm going to scroll down. You should see that it has few attributes, but that's because I have turned on Enable Automatic Attribute Selection. So it's going to just try its best to find it on its own. like what's the best attributes, but it doesn't have the specific for that I selected for active accessibility over here with a totally different user. So that's still something I'd probably want to fully test out, but it appears as though what Blue Prism has done is attached to this to sort of like user preferences, which I think makes a lot of sense. Initially, I thought that it was going to be per object. So one developer goes into this object, changes the settings, and then that will be saved for the next developer. But then I realized developers have different preferences, and none of them necessarily are wrong, as long as it works. So it doesn't actually make sense for one user to affect another user's sort of preferences for those custom attributes. So I think I kind of like this. And I honestly, I don't know how they would implement it, but it does make sense to me that you should also be able to save it per object. But I honestly, for user experience, like I don't know how you would implement that in the UI, but it seems like something you might want. And then I just want to show you that in the same object where I just played around with Enhanced Application Modeler on the left side, but I primarily was doing the original application model, you can go back to the original and everything's still there. Same thing for this one over here where I created everything in this, in the Enhanced Application Modeler. You can go to the original one and everything would still be there if I hadn't actually discarded changes. Okay, let's just prove that you can do this. All right, I've paused myself. So, sometimes what happens is I get caught up in the moment and I forget to read the words on the screen. If you notice, I clicked on the wrong object here. It's completely the wrong name. That's not the one that I've been working with on the right side of the screen this whole time. It's the one that I just temporarily opened. So the elements in the real object are actually still there between the two different application modelers, but still what I'm about to show you on screen back when I recorded this still applies because I'm going to show you creating an element in one application modeler and that it's still in the other. We'll go into the Enhanced Application Modeler. We will identify and we'll just hold Shift. We'll use the automatic spy mode. Hold Control, right click. It creates all these elements. And then I'm just going to apply changes and close out of this. I'll go back into the original application modeler in this right side. And you'll see that these ones, the extra ones I created, like they're there. Okay. It's just because I discarded my other changes on purpose. So this is a great experience. I think Blue Prism, you did a good job. You did a fantastic job. Now, can we talk about dark mode and the ability to have anchors for active accessibility and UIA mode? That would be wonderful. I don't know how you implement that. Maybe it's not possible, but I would really like it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.